This video contains content sponsored by John Wilson Blades and MK Blades. Opinions discussed in this video do not reflect the views of John Wilson or MK.
Well, Tessa, Virtue, and Scott Moir, welcome to the skating lesson. I'm thrilled to have you on the show.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, we're excited. It's our first time.
I feel like I've talked about you for years. So you had quite the eventful month coming back to competition, the Autumn Classics, Skate Canada, winning both. But I want to know, it has to be a little bit nerve-wracking. You make this decision, you're gung-ho, you're training. At what point do you start freaking out, wondering, what exactly am I doing? What did I get myself into?
I think the better question is, when do we stop freaking out?
Yeah. I mean, did you have a freak out moment this summer at any time when you're driving or going to the rink?
I can't really narrow it down to one moment. But like you said, it is a bit daunting. I mean, we're coming back and, you know, a lot of your head, you're kind of wondering if you still are good enough to skate. I mean, to compete against these very, very talented kids. And I think that the state of ice dance is, the level has just come up and up and up, and especially technically, I mean, it's quite a demanding sport. So, yeah, I don't know if there was a little bit of a freak out, but I think what we did is just really put that faith in our team and relied on Marie and Patch. And, I mean, a couple of times I think they got sick of us asking if we thought, or if they thought we were crazy. And, you know, they were super supportive. And, you know, I think we're lucky to have such a great team, and we really had to rely on them because, like you said, it was super daunting.
Which one of you, I guess, said to the other one first, like, do you want to really come back? Like, how did you go about, was this over text? How did you approach it?
It's funny, I think,
Tess and I don't text.
Okay.
We get that question a lot about who was it that initiated the conversation, and to be completely honest, it was very equal. I feel like we were both coming at this from a very similar perspective, and that was important to us. You know, we couldn't feel like we were doing this as a favor to the other, or we both needed to be 100% invested. And, you know, at this stage in our career, we owed it to each other to be completely honest. But those conversations sort of happened over, you know, the course of several months, and we would sort of touch base and then go our separate ways or do other, you know, business ventures, and then kind of come back together and reevaluate. And the more time that passed, the more we just really missed it.
When did you decide? Because I remember there was a video on CBC of you working with David and MarieFrance, and I thought, all right, this is happening. And that was maybe like January, February last year.
Well, that was a bit of a test, right?
Yeah,
like collaboration.
I don't think David and Marie really knew, but we were testing it out. We were trying them out. And, you know, they were great about it because we were able to be honest with both David and Marie and Patch and Romain and kind of just say, like, we're kind of thinking about this. So we want to kind of try it out and see, you know, if we have it in us. But like Tessa said, it was interesting because after 2010, we had a definite moment where we're like, okay, we're in it to the next games. And this was a little bit more, I don't know if it's sophisticated is the word, but I mean, it was definitely more gradual. Mm-hmm. But it did kind of come down to a similar moment in the end where it was just like, yeah, we are going to be there. And we just couldn't imagine watching Korea from home and not be marching with the Canadian team.
And I have to say that every part of the process has just felt right. Mm-hmm. So far, it just feels like we're where we need to be. And, you know, being back on competitive ice is satisfying us right now. Yeah. It's kind of feeding that competitive fire that is still in us.
And we watched, I mean, we used to go to competitions, and luckily we worked with a little bit of TSN and CBC, so we were able to be on the broadcasting side, but we just kept thinking, like, why are the athletes not taking it so seriously, but one, like, so hard on themselves, and I didn't feel like they were really enjoying it, apart from a couple of the top skaters. And we really wanted to keep that, and when we came back, so we're really trying to take advantage of every moment, and even in the training and the double run-throughs and the stuff that we hate, or not hate, but don't feel amazing, just trying to find the beauty in it.
Is it more fun now than it was in 2014?
Yes.
Yeah, it is. I think the break really served a good purpose for us, because after 17 years of competing together, we did need to take a step back. And it's so interesting coming back, because this is our choice. We've committed to this, and this is what we want. So even the nerves and the pressure and the fatigue and, pushing ourselves, well, that's all by design. I mean, we asked for it. So it's, I feel like we're in a bit of a different position, and we're just loving every bit of it.
I don't think we knew there'd be quite as much pressure as we felt, but
that comes with it.
I guess. So, it's selective memory.
Well, see, with selective memory, when your bodies have to selective memory get back to what you did before, when you get into the training, how many hours a day are you sleeping? Are you wiped out in the beginning of the training? Like, what kind of shock did your body go through?
Yeah, but it also...
It was
it was a process. Maybe
it was a process.
That, but...
Oh, I was dead. we kind of talk about this, and we go back and forth, but it took a lot to get kind of back in that mindset. And like, I was coming home from the rink, and then I would just flop on the couch and then try and get myself together for the next day. And it was a solid month of that for me.
But at the same time, it was so inspiring, because we were sort of putting our material together and really focusing on breaking down our technique, new skating, skills and style. So we were challenged, and that was a great part of the appeal in this whole process. And so, it was that exciting adrenaline. I mean, there were definitely crashes for sure. But we had also been really pushing ourselves in the training for show programs and tours and performing. I mean, we were training, mostly our base was in London or whatever city we happened to coincide our schedules. But Ilderton. But we had been pushing ourselves, so it felt, natural to get back into it.
Yeah, we knew we wanted, we were always competitive people. So even when we did our shows, we want to kind of be the best that we can be. And it was a little bit easier because we kind of had in the back of our heads that, there would be a chance that we'd come back. So we were trying to use the last couple of tours as a little bit of, getting back into training life. It's easy on tour to kind of going out for a nice dinner, and then you're skating, and it's hard to train. It's really, really hard to train on tour, and people kind of oversee that because you don't have your gym every day and your team. And so Tessa and I kind of relied on each other a little bit for that in the last couple tours, and tried to push ourselves. And thank God we did, because it's hard. It's hard to come back after 2 years and keep up with these people.
Yeah. Well, the Autumn Classics seemed to go really well. In the short dance, though, it looked like you were almost overly excited. You had like a little trip ups.
Did you? Just a bit.
So what did it feel like? You're actually competing again. You're feeling the adrenaline, which you can't really simulate. So I guess walk us through what kind of that performance was like.
Yeah, I think, leading into Autumn Classic, we had really focused on the technical side of things. So that base was very strong. And we were excited. We were excited to show our material. We were in such a good place training-wise. We'd had such a good summer to build momentum. And it was fun to perform for the first time. And in Montreal, in front of a lot of our new support staff and team, B210 based here in Montreal, that a lot of our team members were watching. And so it was exciting. I felt we were a little disconnected, which is probably what you saw, a little bit of that push-pull, but technically quite sound. And then I think it was a good little hurdle, because we were able to come back in the free dance and really find that unison, find that purpose and intention in our skating, and really enjoy it.
Yeah, I would say that I don't think it's underestimating what the pressure was going to be like, but I mean, you can talk about the pressure, and Tessa and I talked about how we're just going to skate for us, and we're not going to worry about our team. And, it's a big step for us to be here with MarieFrance and Patrice and Romain, and we love training with them, and we want to show everybody that, what they give us every day is so fantastic. So in a way, we want to kind of show that also with B210. I didn't know if you were hitting me there.
Sorry, no.
With B210, our whole off-ice team is different, and we wanted to make them proud, and they were there in the stand. So there was a lot going on, and we can say to each other, because hopefully we have enough experience to know that we can't focus on that. And we did. We said that to each other, and then we got in the moment, and the pressure kind of got to us a little bit, and it was kind of what we focused on. So it was a really good lesson that way. And Skate Canada, I'm sure was going to be your next question, but we needed ACI, and there's a reason why you do events like that. It really taught us some good lessons, how to compete again, and then we learned even more going into Skate Canada.
Well, it's funny because I feel like we watched you compete for 10 years. You never had an issue with the twizzles. Year before the Olympics in 2014, the twizzles were the key moment in every program. How satisfying was it to hit the twizzles in Autumn Classic? And I guess what changed in your technique? Has anything changed? Is it just the time off? I guess what?
The twizzles didn't really, I wouldn't say crossed our minds really for ACI because we'd just been training them so well and they were never an issue in practice. So we sort of always expect to compete the way we train. And they've been quite solid, and as with our other elements. But we were happy with our first outing at ACI for sure. Technique-wise, I think we have a long-term plan. Over the next year and a half, there's a lot we want to accomplish with our skating, but we're really focusing on ankle and knee work, the quality of edges, smooth, seamless glide of the blade, and just maintaining speed and power in a different way. So it's a little bit more British than Russian style, but having a great base working with Igor and Marina for 10 years, we're bringing some of that to the table, and that's sort of inherent in our skating, as it is. So I think it's sort of an amalgamation of a lot of different coaches and a lot of different techniques. We're sort of finding our own style, but it will be a process.
Well, I'm sure you're sick of this next question, but of all the music in the world, how did you wind up skating to the same music that Meryl Davis danced to win Dancing with the Stars when she used Latch? Because
that's cool.
I went out to dinner with a skating agent, and she said, how did they use the same music? How the biggest coincidence. Yeah.
Oops.
That's cool.
Maybe I should watch ABC. We were really, that was really cool for them, that Dancing with the Stars
really
thing.
Cool.
And I remember I didn't watch her. Did it?
Well, it was cool to tour with them afterwards and just hear about their experiences.
That's what it is. I heard the stories.
That they did Stars on Ice and Dancing with the Stars, all at once. I know Evan can attest to how much work that would be.
Yeah, Charlie had to start drinking coffee. Yeah, that's what it was.
Right. Oh, that's very cool. We'll have to go back and watch that performance.
Yeah.
Is it better than ours?
No.
We're not
well, it's ballroom and it's barefoot, so it's very different. And she's dancing with Max, so it's nothing like skating. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Do you have any cool moves we can steal?
Maybe. You know what? You can
some of that
frame by frame. You can go through it. Yeah.
It's a great piece of music. We show up to the rink every day and still love to skate to it.
Well, speaking of reality shows, you had your own, and I know that Scott has said that he didn't watch it, but how true to life was that edit? I mean, how much, obviously you're focused on the Olympics, but how much of an editing job do you feel like is done when you then watch the show?
That's a good question. We became so comfortable with the crew that was surrounding us, and we loved our team, the cameramen, the producers, the directors. We just loved them, and they became like our family members for those 65 days that we shot. And in those moments, we were honest and very genuine and real. I think
they have a story
some extra drama needed to be created for sure. There were some moments, some conversations that were pieced together that didn't really happen. But, that's reality TV, and that's sort of part and parcel for what you sign on for.
Well, the highlight moment was you obviously throwing up on camera, or right off camera.
I will say that I was not mic'd in that moment. Those are fake sound effects.
Yeah, we want to know who's Tessa's puke double.
Yeah.
That's the question.
So is that just a normal early season thing that happens as athletes? I guess, is that... Did that really happen?
Yes. I was actually sick. I think that was a combination of nerves and adrenaline, and there were a lot of factors.
We're really classy people, so we don't want to turn a mic off. We can disconnect or turn the lab off.
Well, I would imagine that you wouldn't have the mic on when you're skating anyway. So if you're going from skating to the bathroom, think about the production.
I actually wish that it was I wish that it were me actually making those noises instead, because it just felt so fake when it was.
Well, yeah, that's weird. So you think you sound better?
I hope so.
it was cool because the team that we had was so good. So actually, a lot of times we did skate. We were mic'd, so we felt like they really worked with us really well. And I can't really say because I've watched like probably 10, 15 minutes of the 6 episodes, but there was a little bit, I think, creative editing. But for the most part, very honest, and something that we're pretty proud of. We let people into our world, and I think they did a pretty good job of showing our story.
Well, especially at that time, neither of us had social media, so we were, and I mean, we continue to be very private, but
still
even more so then. And so it was very cool to sort of share that part of our lives, the highs and the lows, and the roller coaster that is the preparation for an Olympic Games. It was really cool to share that with Canada. Well, and other countries.
They really captured your training environment and the dynamic at that time. So I want to bring you back when you first got to Michigan. Because obviously you're moving to the States. So you're pretty young. Is it that different culturally? I guess what surprised you about Americans when you go?
Well, we were being taught by Russians. So I think that was a bigger shock to us coming from our Canadian coaches that were very, warm and friendly, and it was just a totally different dynamic with Igor and Marina, especially at the start because we were quite young, and I think they were sort of testing us to see what we could handle. And so that was a bigger culture shock.
They were super professional and very strict, so for us that was really tough to handle. I mean, they would, if we had a 45-minute lesson, I mean, we didn't stop skating for 45 minutes, and Igor scared the hell out of us. For the first, how long did he teach us? First 9 years. But it was interesting because eventually that evolved, that relationship, and then we kind of grew into adults and took more ownership of our career, and it kind of worked more as a partnership, and that's similar to the way we work with MarieFrance and Patrice now. But being from where we're from, London, Ontario, and Ilderton, and we're kind of right in the middle of Toronto and Detroit, so it's not a cultural shock. Like we go down to watch a ball game or go shopping in Detroit, and had been down there a lot even before. But
and the Canton community really embraced us.
They really did. Like the rink group, and we still have friends that we cherish there and always will. And those are pretty influential years of our life. I mean, you were 15 to 25, and I was 17 to 27 in Michigan. So. Montreal is such a fantastic city, but there are people and things about Detroit that I really miss.
I guess, how quickly did you improve those first couple years? When obviously you're young, you're energetic, they're picking apart your skating, I guess, but how quickly did you see, I guess, the payoff?
I think that those were certainly formative years for our skating. I mean, we made a huge shift, and Igor has such a unique technical approach. I mean, he's a genius, really, when it comes to edges and stroking and fundamental skating skills. So we were just so excited to learn from the best. And Marina too, with the way she approached choreography and
her vision.
The vision she had. I mean, they just were such a dynamic duo. So I would say that that was a critical time in our skating career, and it really laid the foundation for what was to come.
Not to mention, I mean, the reason why we moved down there in the first place was to train with competitors, and at that time not really competitors, but Tanith and Ben. I mean, they were huge in the ice dance world, and just to be on the same ice with them and their speed, and then later Meryl and Charlie. I mean, that was a huge asset to us. And Megan Wing and Aaron Lowe, even we had a fight with them for the 2006 Olympics, and we learned a lot from those lessons. So I guess we improved pretty fast because we found ourselves on the junior world podium pretty quick, which is something that we would never thought we would. And then I don't think we would have gone back to to win Junior Worlds the second year if it wasn't for them. They really convinced us of that, and that was a huge lesson as well.
Well, you mentioned the 2006 Olympics. So did you let it enter your minds that was a possibility at the time? Because it went from seeming unlikely to being a very real possibility. So
totally.
Yeah, and we were devastated after those national championships. I mean, that was one of the hardest things we've gone through, because when you're 16 and 18, and that seems like, it's earth-shattering. And we were so disappointed not to be on that Olympic team.
And we had in our mind that we wanted to win in 2010. And, that was a pretty crazy and lofty goal back then. But at the same time, we knew that nobody had gone to Olympics and won. So on that end, it gone to their first Olympics and won, And that was a little bit crushing. Then it felt like we weren't even being set up for future Olympics in our own country.
Did you watch those Olympics when you were a
Yes.
teenager? I guess what was that experience like watching it, knowing you want to win the next one 4 years later, you're not there, you just miss?
Well, it was funny because we had been given, when we thought maybe we would make the team, we had been given these T-shirts and hats that said Destination Torino. So I remember wearing at home or in Michigan, wearing a Destination Torino T-shirt, watching the Olympics, and so broken.
I wore mine in training until probably I just quit wearing it a year ago, kind of, because that was such a great motivator, and something that then soon after, I mean, we were kids, so we were devastated, but it then became about showing everyone that we belonged and that we were going to go to Vancouver and win those Olympics. And I don't know if we have the same results in 2010 without kind of that setback. And it's easy to look at it now and kind of romanticize about it, but it was an important part of our journey. But of course, it was in our minds. I mean, we wanted to go. That was the goal for the year, and really tough for us to kind of watch at home and then kind of gear up for Junior Worlds.
Well, obviously that season was successful, winning Junior Worlds, but during the off season, it seems like your skating really transformed when you went from juniors to seniors. So when you did get back to training, I guess, what did you pick apart in your skating to really improve to make it to the senior level so that you wouldn't be, left off of a podium again?
I think we were scared, to be honest. Looking back at that time, that's the overriding feeling that I get. I mean, we did nationals and senior, but stepping up into that really into the senior category full time and being on the senior Grand Prix circuit is very, very different. And I think I can remember that was the main thought running through my head is like, this is the big times now. So we got to skate big and we got to push and we got to lift and we got to do all this stuff way bigger than we've ever done. And I think fear kind of motivated us, or at least me. I don't know what you were thinking back then. What were you thinking?
I don't even remember.
No. Yeah, I would say we were scared, and we wanted to show that even though because we were quite small and quite short, and the guy looked like a little boy still. So competing in the senior, we wanted to prove that we belonged.
Mm-hmm. It's funny because MarieFrance, after those Canadian championships in 2007, said that she knew you guys were going to come and win and that she better move aside.
Oh my God.
And I know that you said that they kind of took you under their wing at that time going into Worlds. So what kind of advice did they actually give you?
I vividly remember being on a podium with them at some point. I don't know if it was a Skate Canada or a Nationals, and they were first, obviously, and Marie just looked down and said, savor this, and one day this is going to be you up here. And just take in this moment. And we toured with them a little bit, and they showed us what it meant to be professional, to be people that others wanted to work with, and to make sure that we were giving the fans everything we had, every performance. So there was a lot to be learned from them, and we're so grateful, and it's interesting because their programs really set the standard for us in a lot of ways. Like that Somewhere in Time, even when we were finding music in 2014, we would always come back to Somewhere in Time. We just felt we absolutely loved it, and we knew that we couldn't ever skate to it because that was their program. But, we'd think we'd found music that we loved, and then we'd play Somewhere in Time, and it was just like, oh, no, that's it. That's what we want that feeling. So, we were forever kind of chasing our Somewhere in Time moment for ourselves.
Well, that next year it seemed like when you had the Umbrellas of Cherbourg program, everything just went right. You won Skate Canada, you won the Canadian Championships, and going into Worlds, though, it seemed like it was going to be Tanith and Ben's moment with all the buzz, and they go down in the compulsory dance, and it becomes your moment at the World Championships where your career really skyrocketed. So what was that week, like for you? How life-changing were kind of the 2008 Worlds?
What's funny is pretty much every time that we've been successful and had a breakthrough moment, we're kind of in our own world. And I remember Tanith and Ben not having the best compulsory, now looking back. But then, we weren't even thinking about who we were competing against. We were thinking about just having the best Argentine tango that, we've ever done. And we trained that dance really well and really hard, and we thought we'd be in the mix, and we were going to at least stir things up a little bit. But it was a really, really long, as Worlds was back in the day with compulsory dances, it was there was a lot of teams, it was a long event. I think we got lucky because we were close to the end of the event, but none of the other Canton teams were. So we got a lot of time just to be by ourselves and really be in our own little world. And that really kicked it off for us, And then you followed those with an original dance and a free dance that, was exactly how we'd been training it. And kind of a simple, lucky to be so young and a little bit clueless. It was a magical moment for us that we deserved. We trained hard, but I don't think we really understood what we'd accomplished at that moment, which we hated. Oh my God, we hated when people said that to us. Like, you don't understand what you just done. And we just think, like, piss off. I know exactly what I just did. But now looking back, I can't believe I'm saying those words. I'm the old man, officially.
How old are you? Because I'm trying to think about this, because you're not that old. And I feel like we've watched you forever, which is.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Are you doing one of these with Gabby and Guillaume? Don't be afraid to throw that out there.
Okay.
I'm only 29.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you.
You could keep going another 4 years, after 20.
Let's not push it.
Okay. We'll drag you back. Yeah. Well, it was revealed that you had compartment syndrome. So at what time did you start to feel this? And kind of describe this to someone, because this is a very unique kind of syndrome that people have with muscle casing and, at the time. So kind of, when did you start feeling this? When did you notice it?
Well, it was actually after that World Championships in 2008. Because we sort of set a plan for ourselves then. We thought, okay, we were second here. In 2009, we'll win Worlds. Head to the Olympics being world champions.
Easy.
And there we go.
Here we go.
But I think as a result of that, we started putting in 13, 14-hour days at the rink and thought that it was cool to be the first ones there and the last ones to leave, and really pushing our bodies. We were working with, various lift coaches and really trying to change the way we skated, or maybe not even change things, but just be so much better. Anyway, so shockingly, I ended up with an overuse injury, and that's really what compartment syndrome is. The fascial tissue just kind of strangulates your muscles. So I could skate for maybe 20 seconds at a time, 20, 30 seconds, and then this intense cramping and numbness would sort of take over. So surgery in October, a year and a half before the games, was not really a part of the plan. And that was a big obstacle for us, but made it back for Worlds that year.
I guess, what did you do when she was off the ice? Because obviously you're still preparing for this season,
Yeah.
And how do you stay in shape for the season when you can't use your calf? And I guess, what do you both do in that moment?
Well, it was an interesting time. We had two of those surgeries in our career. One was before Vancouver, like Tessa said, in the fall of 2008. And the other one was in the fall of 2010. Is that right?
Yeah.
And very, very different approaches. The first time, to kind of go along with what we did all summer, the overtraining thing, I just thought, well, if she's off, I have to do the work and I have to, kind of carry the load for the team. So I was there skating with a sandbag, skating with a hockey stick, training harder than I ever did in the gym. And then we didn't really communicate because she was at home in London. God, I wish Montreal was home. She was at home in London, and I was in Michigan training. So it was a really hard time for us. We didn't really communicate that well. And luckily, not luckily for you, but thankfully we had another chance at that kind of situation because, I found in 2011, that 2011 season when she had the surgery in the fall of 2010, I took a break. I took some time off. Yes, I was still in the gym. But then we kind of came back together, and we actually it was a quicker recovery because we kind of did those steps together, and we put a lot less pressure on ourselves, and, we were a lot more successful. So it was an interesting lesson.
Mm-hmm. Well, you eventually had surgery, you mentioned again in 2010, but I know that you once said that you were going to have a third surgery, but that you changed your skating technique so that you didn't have to. So I guess, what did you change? Because you were Olympic champions. People would say that you would have pretty good technique. I always thought that was interesting. So what did you kind of...
I think that actually the fact that we had already won the Olympics was an interesting point because no one broke down our skating then because of that. I think we sort of just took our technique for granted, and no one really took the time to strip it apart and analyze it and think, okay, is this the most efficient way, for body mechanics? So luckily, we were in touch with a fantastic team, and I mean, I kind of changed everything from the way I stood and walked to the way I did squats in the gym to the way I skated. I mean, really just recruiting different muscle patterns. So I always sort of relate it to learning to write with your other hand. I mean, it's just retraining those patterns that your brain, the signals your brain sends. And it was a very interesting process, but I think for us it made it a much more intellectual and scientific approach to training, which is what I think we needed in order to take our skating to the next level.
I think one of the most interesting videos on YouTube is when you two are actually watching your free dance from 2010 and you're kind of breaking down your performance and kind of blasting yourselves a little bit that you didn't like your position on the twizzles. I think your launching position. So walk me through what has changed. What is the launching position? What do we need to look for that you like better now than you did before?
It's like hearing your voice on the answering machine, you know, like if people still have answering machines. But like, it's just, it's never the way you think you sound. And it's the same, I think, with skating, especially those big moments, because it feels so good, you know, when you nail a skate. And we nailed original, compulsory, original, and free in Vancouver. Mm-hmm. And I think they were as good as the skates, like we had almost better than we'd trained, which is unheard of in Olympic Games. But they weren't quite, we weren't perfect back then, you know. Not that we're perfect now, but then when we watched 2014, I don't know if it's worse, but we just also really don't like those skates. So I guess that's why we're back.
Do you like any of your skates? Like any of them, are you happy with?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we're really, really hard on ourselves.
We need like a 4 or 5 year buffer period, you know, because then looking back, way back.
Even then.
Maybe not. Yeah, I don't know.
No, I think it's just hard to see it on video. And we never really get to watch, like, it is different through a camera lens a little bit, especially with figure skating. You don't get the speed and the flow and like how everyone, hopefully the moves interact together and with each other. But I don't know.
Is it ever hard for you to watch your interviews back?
I hate a lot of them. So,
well, we think you're great.
You're killing it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, but I watch it, but it's true that you watch yourself and then you would have changed this or that. And
totally. Yeah. And it's, I mean, of course, it's way better than what you started with, but you just think, like, why wouldn't I have changed that? You know, like, and we think a lot of that for most of our programs. But, I mean, I guess that's the perfectionist in us. I mean, there are definite times when I look back and just think, okay, that's cool, like, good for us.
But, you know, I think that's the interesting thing about our sport and probably why we keep striving for more is because there is no such thing as perfection. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're reaching for this unattainable goal, you know, that just doesn't exist. So at some point that distinction needs to be made and that needs to be a personal decision on, okay, what is it that is most important and what is it that I'm really seeking?
Deep.
Yeah. I was like, how do I transition out of that?
Sorry.
Well, I want to ask you about the Olympics because that season, the free dance seemed to be that ideal perfection. It seemed like you had the perfect magic program that was carrying you. The OD, when I remember back to you skating in 2010, I remember there were skirt issues at one competition.
I think I fell like 5 times at one Grand Prix.
Yeah, it was not the easy way. You lost the final going into the Olympics, which obviously you were going to, you know, win these Olympics. So you win the OD at the Olympics. How key was that moment for you and how much, you know, in the trajectory?
I mean, I think that was the Olympic moment. Mm-hmm. I really think that original dance was it. And I mean, it was an ambitious program and we sort of know that about the way we train and the way we set ourselves up for a season. Right back from when we were choreographing with Suzanne Killing when we were young. I mean, we always made highly difficult programs and then plan to peak later in the season. So we give ourselves a lot of room to grow and evolve. And sometimes it's easy to get lost in that process and lose perspective, you know, on that long-term goal. But I think we really stayed true to that with that Faruka's program and we sort of hit our stride with that program right before Nationals, and Nationals was a good skate, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And,
it was good.
You know, we knew that we needed to nail it in Vancouver, and we knew that just needed to happen one step at a time.
Now, had you been a big Ekaterina Gordieva fan? Because she skated to both of those pieces of music. Yeah,
I know, it's not funny. So Marina had sent us, well, we struggled with the folk program trying to find music, and she gave us
You did well not going with the Aboriginal program.
Oh.
That was a really good call. Yeah.
Marina sent us home with this big, huge box of music, and we listened through every CD that was apparently folk, and she has quite a music collection. And Faruka's was the one piece of music that moved both of us. And it wasn't until we played it for her and started choreographing that later she told us that Katya had skated to it.
Which is crazy. I mean, we should probably have known that, and that's embarrassing. But we didn't really. I mean, we watched skating, but you know, we're not really great on the history of the sport, or like can't tell you really what anybody skates to.
But actually, sorry, side note, Katya texted me just last week at Skate Canada, and I had a little moment where I was like, I wonder, 10 years ago, would I have ever imagined Katya Gordieva texting me?
Yeah.
It was a cute little,
You'll have to ask her for music advice again.
I was just going to say, does she have a couple more?
Dancing with the Stars.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we're just taking it. I just have to give Meryl a call.
Yeah.
Well, given that I've never won the Olympics, I don't really know how this feels, but I imagine the day of the free skate of the Olympics is a bit different than any other day in your life. So walk me through that whole day. Do you remember being more nervous, less nervous, wanting to throw up? I mean, This is your big moment. You've obviously had this plan that you're going to win these Olympics, and now it can really happen. Do you sleep the night before?
I think, oof.
We probably had very different.
Yeah, it's different. The one thing I can tell you that's for sure is you're going to feel everything. You're going to think about every possible scenario. You're going to feel sick. You're going to feel excited. You're going to feel confident. You're going to feel like there's no way you could do it. You're going to feel everything. And it seems like the clock just will not go quick enough. And yeah, I didn't sleep very much the night before Vancouver free dance. I know exactly what the ceiling looks like. I looked at it, I examined it, for 9 solid hours. But at the same time, I couldn't eat. I was really forcing myself to eat, which is really rare for me. And but then there was a calm. I just knew. It's just we worked with a great team, and we had some great role models, Marnie McBean and David Pelletier, who gave us an edge that we didn't have, which was experience. We really relied on their experience, and that worked really well for us. And we just had a few key things, and we really stayed together, and we knew that we could do it, and we knew that free dance could be performed at the level we needed to win.
How about for you? Did you sleep?
Getting nervous. She was eating cottage cheese. I look over, I can barely get a chicken breast in my mouth. She's trying cottage cheese for the first time. Chocolate.
It's strange. I certainly...
Strange is one way to put it.
I think I had my share of nerves before, but that day... I mean, also I was injured, and so a large portion of my day was spent on the physio table. I did a ton of visualization. But there was this sort of sense of serenity, like this calm. I just sort of knew that we would execute. And maybe it's easy for me to look back and reflect and think that now, but I really did feel that. I felt that there was something about the energy of that building, that program. It just felt right.
Mm-hmm. Well, stressful moments, you remember really weird things. So do you have like weird moments of skating that free dance of like someone in the crowd? Or I know that like for every stressful moment in my life, I usually remember really strange, visceral things. So.
That's funny.
Couple things I'll never forget. One is 20 seconds in. If you watch the video, and I remember this, our pattern shifted a little bit, and I was about that close. You can see my blade. I was that close to catching the soft board, and I would have been down for sure, because like kind of when you catch that, you just snag, and I would have been on my back, which would have been an interesting way to recover. But
right. And I had like a funny little bobble right before our first lift.
Yeah.
Which I'm not sure you can see even, but
it started shaky, and there was kind of nerves. I mean, once we kind of settled in. We had some really, really strong elements, and probably one of our best skates that I'll never forget ending the wrong way, because there was this moment where, like, Tessa tried to exit out, and I kind of, like, for some reason, I've been so wrong so many times in our career, but, like, I thought, nope, that's not the right way, and I sent her, and then I looked, and there were no judges, and I was just like, damn it! I'm never going to live this one down. I don't think I'll ever forget that. And And Tessa just kept like looking at me, and I think she thought we weren't going to win the Olympics because we ended a different way. Like there was fear in her eyes. I was just like, hey, like, you see everyone standing up, going great. I think we skated pretty well. And she was just like,
But I do remember, especially before the diagonal and that free dance, having a moment where I thought, wow, I'm really enjoying this.
Mm-hmm.
Like I felt very present, and I think that was part of why we were able to perform well, is because we were really present in the moment.
No, did Marina and Igor critique you when you get off the ice at that moment? Did they tell you that you were
No,
headed the wrong way? Or did they...
The Olympics? No, I think they laughed about that probably.
Yeah, because we got there, and I think then by how Tessa reacted, then I was starting to be pretty nervous. Like, oh my God, maybe not ending the wrong way or ending the right way was a real problem. And I got there, and Marina and Igor were just like, who cares?
Yeah.
You skated great. Like, just be happy. You realize what you just did in your own country, and kind of similar to 2008, where it's just like. Yeah, we had trained really hard, and we felt we really feel still like we deserved that. But a little bit lucky. We didn't truly understand what we had done.
I think I turned to Igor in the kissing cry and I said, "I think we just won the Olympics." That was a funny moment.
Good thing was that not Mike, because that would have been that's like 3 skaters.
We did hear that. Yeah, we thought you won too with the score. So yeah,
Meryl and Charlie and the Russians hadn't skated, but. I'll never forget that moment too. Is when I teased Tessa. She never really looks at the points of a free dance or of anything, and we still now like don't really. Sorry, and I'm not. You know what I mean? We still now don't really pay attention to points. It's like we don't really compare competition to competition. We look at levels because it's really something we can control, and obviously I'll look at GOEs and stuff, and second mark so I can improve for the next competition. But the Olympic Games. You don't really know what anything means. So it's great to see like 120, but it's like, I don't know what the highest is going to be. So I knew Tessa definitely didn't know that. So I kind of played a little trick on her when I told her like, hey, like they just, we're second. And she's like, oh my God, that's so great. We're second at the Olympics. Like, how great is that? And I was like, no, we won the Olympics. It was the meanest trick I ever played. But that's what I'll remember.
Fun though. I mean, we joked that in Sochi, I wish that was really a joke.
She was like,
are you kidding?
When are you going to tell me that we actually won?
It's going to be a while for that one.
I think when you win, it's probably, you think like 4 more years. It sounds like a great idea. Obviously, we're young. Keep going. Then you have surgery again. And while you're off, Meryl and Charlie started winning everything. And you come back, and it's like the landscape shifts on you a little bit.
Yeah.
How much does it change in the rink at that point when all of a sudden the order is now, it used to be you're here, they're,
We always loved training with Meryl and Charlie. We had such respect for them and their work ethic. I mean, we saw how hard they trained every single day, and that just pushed us. And, there was a great dynamic on the ice together. So I think that sort of just that going back and forth, it was a healthy balance of that competition. And
it seemed more intense afterwards. So
I think probably. But
Definitely.
we also realized that it was good for the sport. I mean, I think all 4 of us realized that was just, good for the fans. It was exciting for people to watch.
Mm-hmm.
I think we had a lot of respect for each other.
Yeah, I mean, even at the end, they were our favorite team to train with, and I mean, they work so hard and very, very consistent skaters, and they deserve everything they've got. And it's tough when you're in that situation because, like you said, it gets pretty heated. And we are competing against each other. We had a pretty good idea it was either going to be them or us who won in 2014 and in 2010. And it's kind of easy to kind of feel that towards each other and kind of. Feel that tension, I guess, is what I'm trying to say in the rink. And, at the end of it, it's just like in figure skating, they can have their moment and we can have ours. And it's been nice after Sochi to kind of tour together and do a couple shows. And you really realize, kind of the unique relationship that the 4 of us actually have.
Mm-hmm.
Well, knowing how driven all 4 of you are, everyone in skating loved talking about what it must have been like for you all training together. And the show, definitely that first episode of your show, they loved, showing that kind of competitiveness. I guess how accurate... I'm sorry?
The 2 storylines we asked them to stay away from in the show was like, don't show like Tessa and I are in love, and try not to show that rivalry with the Americans, because we
what
knew...
would you have liked the show to be about?
That's a great question.
We
Skating?
just wanted it to be like your
We
dog.
were pitched that it was a documentary, first of all, so...
It always starts as a documentary, and then you're going on like weird, awkward dates.
It's in the book.
Yeah.
I think probably it was far less exciting actually being
Mhm.
in the Arctic Edge
Mhm.
arena in Canton, Michigan than other people would have liked it to be.
Did you skate in the same sessions?
Not always. Sometimes. Often.
Mhm. Interesting. So I guess how driven are, Meryl and Charlie? Because we see them competing. They're also very private people.
Mhm.
So, I guess
there's-
how competitive, what do we not know about Meryl and Charlie, off the ice? Yeah.
Well, I don't know
Who's the leader of that team?
so much off the ice. They lead in very different ways, which is very, very interesting. And, it was kind of neat to see Meryl win Dancing with the Stars after all that. It was,
Mhm.
I don't know what we had expected, but at the same time,
And then recently Charlie choreographed for them, which was kind of cool to see that dynamic and what that program looked like. We thought it was beautiful.
yeah, I mean, we'll tell you kind of what you already know and confirm it. They work
Mhm.
extremely hard. Like
Mhm.
you said, they're so driven.
Mhm.
They're phenomenal athletes and,
Mhm.
a pleasure to train with. I remember being in the gym with Charlie and him just blowing my mind. Just his pure athletic ability is pretty impressive.
So I guess at what point do you realize that you start to have like a different team? Because you started working with other off-ice choreographers.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
We always tried our best, and
Mhm.
it's still something we kind of do here in Montreal. Just try and work with some different people, and it's just healthier, and that's out of respect. And we kind of found that worked pretty well in Canton, and that was something that really Marina pushed for as well, just to make sure that we had different styles. And I think with the four of us, that was simple because we did have naturally very different styles.
Well, that spring when you came back for the World Championships, we hadn't seen your programs. You'd started at 4 continents and then stopped the program. So
Mhm.
you had a couple extra weeks because of the tsunami in Japan. The worlds were moved. And no one had seen the program. At the end of the program, it ended with you flipping Tessa over. And it was the one moment I've ever actually seen you look really winded at the end, where it looked like that flip did not go as high as it should have been.
The flip didn't go anywhere, actually.
Went at a different angle, though. I think I went into that and it was sort of...
I just didn't think we popped it together. I remember that exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were
How prepared
running
were
on
you?
fumes. That was one of those worlds, and people just kept saying to us like, "Oh my gosh, like this is kind of perfect for you. You have 3 weeks extra because of the delayed
Which is
worlds."
awful.
And for us, we were just like so out of gas like that season. Obviously with the surgery again and the comeback, and it was a trying season. And then the little setback with 4 continents, and we were just totally out of gas. And I mean, I can remember that last 30 seconds. So we came out like gangbusters in the first part of that free dance. And I'm actually really proud of that performance because we didn't necessarily have the training under our belt for that World Championships and one of our favorite programs. But at the same time, we just came out and laid it all on the line. And I mean, yeah, we paid for it maybe in the last 20 seconds. But again, it's a tricky, hard little flip move at the end. So you got to gamble.
Yeah. Well, that next year you skated an Audrey Hepburn and Fred Astaire program. Now, we know Tessa's a big Audrey fan. So how much of a say does Scott get in the programs? Are you picking the programs? I guess, how does this work?
I think-
Great question.
It was always a collaborative
Yeah.
approach, to be honest. And
Nobody
Marina-
wants to skate to my Metallica ideas.
We always make sure that we all bring things to the table, and we both have to love the program. I mean, we're listening to it all day, every day for an entire season. It's too much to ask, and we've had programs way, way, way in the past where we didn't feel totally connected to it. So I think we learned our lesson, and we both need to love it. So.
Yeah.
So you said you both have to love the program. So does that mean that Scott is a big Justin Bieber fan?
No. A big Justin Bieber fan.
How did that happen?
Now he knows.
That was Marie, actually. She had that
Yeah.
idea for music.
Sometimes, what's funny for me is I can come around a little bit.
Mhm.
Like, my first impression isn't always telling for how I'm going to feel about the music, in a week or a couple days. And I was a pretty hard no on Bieber, and Marie was just like, I don't know, it's got a funky little feeling. And then I was like, okay, like we'll give it a try. But then once we started dancing to it and moving to it, it made sense. And then it kind of grew on me, and here we are, skating to the Beebs. He's from a very similar part of Ontario than we are, so at least there's that.
Well, that next year you really broke out of your mold when you did Carmen, and it was a far more raw program than you had done. So I have 2 questions. How freeing was it to be able to be that raw, and how loud do you have to yell for the world feed to pick up you yelling at the beginning of your program?
Did you hear me? Did you watch Skate Canada National?
This year, yeah, but
I yelled a little bit in that too.
Didn't pick up like the world feed. It sounds like you're like mic'd for it.
Yeah. I paid the ball for that. I yelled loud. It was one of those moments, and that was a performance I think that we'll remember for a while. We were in London, Ontario. That's our home venue, our hometown venue. It's always been a special place for us to compete, and having a Worlds there and having the support of the community, it was pretty special. And it was one of those where we went out and I was full of energy and all hyped up and full of testosterone, and that little yell actually helped me kind of get centered a little bit, and was my little moment where I could like kind of let it out a little and then focus back in. So pretty loud. I had to yell pretty loud.
Had you yelled before? Was that planned? Was it a planned yell?
I planned that stuff. I'm just a quirky dude, I guess. Just, weird
Very
stuff comes out. Yeah. And I didn't really even realize, but like that was the character. I mean, that's kind of who I was, and obsessive and crazy, and I was living that. And that's when I feel like as a performer and as an athlete, that's my favorite moment. So I'm trying to embrace that a little bit more in everyday training here, and because the biggest fear is that you're going to go out and try and be that intense of a performer, and you're going to flop, and it's going to be embarrassing. And I'm trying to let that go a little bit. I'd rather, bring that energy and, make a mistake here or there, but, keep that passion.
Yeah. Well, when you had to pick music for 2014, I'm sure 2010, you pick your Olympic moment. You never think that you're going to do it twice, that you have to have the winning music twice. How did the seasons come about?
How did the seasons come about?
That's a good question. We really, really struggled. Mm-hmm. We really struggled. Marina really wanted us to feel connected to a Russian composer with the Olympics in Russia, and we searched high and low and, came upon seasons and sort of pieced things together. It was a difficult process. It certainly wasn't the same as 2010 because Marina just had this perfect piece of Mahler, and we fell in love, and it was just instantaneous. We knew that was perfect. So we had to work a little bit harder for it. But, I mean, in the end, it kind of ended up being our story. And
yeah, it was supposed to be the continuation of Mahler a little bit, kind of picking up where it left off and then showing a little bit of conflict. And, I think we're still too close to really take a good look at that and kind of cut it apart. But I don't think you'd be surprised to know that wasn't really the moment that we even looked to create.
Yeah, don't do a trilogy. But at the end...
That might be the best line ever.
Well, analyzing at the time, everyone was wondering what you were going to skate to, and I was like, I don't know. Because you had come off of Carmen.
I don't want to jinx myself, but I don't think we'll be walking down that avenue.
Yeah, but I've always wondered, what were you pledging allegiance to at the end? Because that end changed, and it looked like the flag at the one competition. Totally. It went on for a minute long. Yeah,
totally. And you know what? That was supposed to be a heartfelt, and when I looked at it, I was just like, what are we pledging allegiance to? Why are we like that? And why am I holy crap. A couple moments that I would have fixed if I should have done a bit more video work. But yeah, it is so funny to go back and watch yourself because that wasn't what I felt. It was more so just really, we thought that was the end of our career. And we were just kind of being thankful and just that we have each other and kind of feeling the moment, and wow, did it really ever not come off like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, heading into the 2014 Olympics, Meryl and Charlie obviously had the winning streak, but then there's starting to be all these articles that the Olympics were, going to be fixed or predetermined. I guess as an athlete, I don't think there's any way to escape that. So how aware of you were those articles, and how do you block that out? Because I think any person is going to hear that in the back of their mind. And I mean, obviously there's always chatter. There's always a lot of crap going around. So how do you kind of... Well, it's the Olympics, you know, and you're hearing it's, you know, the results.
I think, you know, we've been in the sport long enough to know that that sort of comes with the territory. And I think if anything, it's just disheartening for us as athletes. We want to do the very best we can to help grow the sport. And we want people to love skating as much as we do, especially when it's put on the world stage at something like the Olympic Games. So we want it to be a credible sport, something that people respect and admire. And if anything, it was just sort of that unsettling feeling of hoping that people took it seriously. I mean, from a personal standpoint, we really needed to disconnect and block that stuff out in order to step on the ice and do our job. Because if we took the ice in Sochi thinking about that, we wouldn't have had the performances that we did. And we're really proud of those skates. I don't think we could have skated those programs any better. And we had our moments, and that's what we wanted. So Sochi was a success for us.
You did have moments, but the weird thing is that you had to compete twice. And you kind of had to compete against the same people twice. And the team event didn't go as well as the individual. So how do you peak for the individual, and how did you kind of rally? Because I remember the lift was strange in the first program, and there were...
Yeah, it was tough. And I mean, we had been told by our team and, you know, the physiologists that we were working with that the team event would be tough. And it would be a different feeling than what we were used to for an Olympic Games. And compared to an Olympics or Worlds, you know, when you're really set to peak for those 2 days. So here we are going into a competition where we hadn't really ever done anything quite like it, where you have to be good enough to compete with the best in the world 6 days before you have to be really good enough to try and win an Olympic title. So a very interesting set of circumstances, but I mean, we're not alone. Meryl and Charlie are in the same boat. And the biggest thing from that is restarting. It was the trickiest thing of the Sochi Games because, we were beat. And we weren't just beat, we were smoked. Like, we were 10 points behind them in the team event. And we were in a position where it's just started to feel like, they're not even putting us within the same ballpark as them. So, you know, we really had to reset and kind of just focus on us. And luckily we'd practiced that, and we'd really made that the theme of 2014, because we felt like that in a couple of situations, that it was kind of just Tess and I versus the world. And, you know, that we've always thrived in that situation. So we quite enjoy it.
The cool thing about that team event were some of my Olympic highlights happened during those few days, like Kevin Reynolds' performance.
K-Ray!
Cry when Megan and Eric killed it. I mean, there was a totally different dynamic, and that, I mean, hard as it may have been, was so inspiring and so cool to just sort of be around that energy, and it really set the tone for the team.
And we take that event extremely seriously. I mean, it's another shot at an Olympic gold medal. And I'm not saying it was just a different feeling peaking-wise. But that's what was kind of disheartening a little bit, is like we were there to win. We wanted to win. We thought Canada had a legitimate chance to press the Russians and at least, you know, make it very, very close. So it was kind of disheartening to you know, be so far back, both in the ice dance competition and then kind of overall. Like, I mean, the Russians skated amazing, but I agree with you, Tess. Like, being in the kiss and cry and having kind of that sense of team that's bigger than us. We've always felt very lucky to have each other, and you go through the day. But we've also grown up with a lot of these athletes. Megan and Eric, we've competed against. Megan was at our very, very first Junior Grand Prix. I mean, K-Ray, I remember I was his roommate at his first Grand Prix. So you grow up together. And then to have the opportunity to kind of win an Olympic medal together as a team, it was really a cool feeling.
Well, one of the things I want to ask you about the Olympics is, this past Olympics, there was so much controversy about Gabby Douglas and how she acted in that moment. And NBC had their cameras fixated on Gabby for when Simone was performing, and they didn't say anything, but the implication was there. Well, after the free dance, when Meryl and Charlie's scores came up, their camera was on the two of you, and to capture whatever your reaction would be.
What was it?
As athletes, how awkward is that? I mean, has it come to a point where you need like your Academy Award clap for when the other
You know what?
goes?
I mean, I think because we grew up around with that, I It's not even registering. I think we're used to, when we're in an arena, we know that there are cameras on, especially at Olympic Games, but there was no surprise there that Phil and Charlie were going to lay it down. We knew that they would perform beautifully.
And we're happy for them. So it's really a mixture of emotions, but like the reality TV show, I find, and this might not be the case, I'm not attacking NBC, but this has happened to us at our national championships a couple of times where they shoot or they turn to you and show a shot that's like looks like it's you reacting, but I could just be like had a bad drink of water or something, and they just show that perfect moment that makes me look disgusted. So a lot of times, like I'm trying to put on a smile, and then they show me like with a reaction from practice 2 days ago or something ridiculous. But as Tessa talked about, our focus was on that moment that we created, and really, really odd feeling, but we're super proud of ourselves. And we grew up watching many athletes, and we watched Brian, that was one, Tessa wasn't born yet, but we watched tape on Brian Orser in '88, and and the special about how he lost the gold and never won the silver. And we weren't going to let that be us, because we went there and did everything we could. We had our moments, and Canada supported us, and skating fans across the world supported us, and we really felt lucky to be able to win an Olympic silver medal.
Well, people obviously refer to you as legends, and the fact that you come so close to being 2-time Olympic champions, almost 3-time Olympic champions if you count the team event, how much does that motivate you going forward and get you into the rink, and knowing that you have that opportunity?
Well, I will tell you that we just did an interview not that long ago, and they just aired it on TV, and he calls us a legend, at which point we go, like kind of listening, and then we stop. We're like, wait, no, we're not. No. I don't think we're quite legends. So we have to do that same thing to you, and I have to work on my reaction a little bit better. But
I think the drive, considering the investment and the sacrifices and the workload and everything we're stepping into and we're committing ourselves to, that drive has to come from within. And any pressure and stress really just comes from ourselves. It's hard. We're too close to it to really have an idea of our standing in the skating world at large. But we're trying to be the very best Tessa and Scott we can be, and that's the most motivating thing. And especially right now, we're back to being students, and we have so much to learn and so much ground to cover in the next year and a half. Sometimes it feels like there's not enough time, but we're just ready to embrace it all, and we're more motivated than ever.
Well, you talk about being, having distance from things, but at the time of the Olympics, you had said that maybe it was a mistake training, all of you together, and I think that's a very normal reaction to have. Afterwards you question everything you just did for the last, 4 years of your life. I guess, had you spoken to Marina after that? You have the Olympic moment. Do you then go and talk? I guess, what happens? Your stuff is in Michigan. Do you talk to her? What?
It was sort of, we moved back to London, and that became our training base, because we were, to be honest, not really home very much. We were on the road a lot, and we worked with different choreographers. That was always kind of the plan, just to sort of try new things and sort of delve into the pro circuit, and as well just sort of redefine ourselves off the ice and feel like we were multi-dimensional, people who had more to give than just ice skating. So, it was a unique time for us, and I'm so grateful we had that.
But no, we didn't really talk to Marina when we came home. We didn't have the chance. It wasn't that we were avoiding her, and it was kind of nice actually to see her at Skate Canada. And you remember all the moments. We were, I don't want to say so done, but we needed a break.
We disconnected from everything. We
needed a break from the sport a little bit, and thank God we did that, because now you can look back and then see the fond memories and see the people who shared all those with you. And in many ways, for Skate Canada International, seeing all those faces, it really did remind me of so many good times, and how fortunate we've been to kind of to have this opportunity, and to be able to represent Canada, and to be able to make our art come to life in arena where people care. And that's never been lost on us.
I think the most curious thing about your comeback for people is how, you needed a break. You went right back to training with the world champions, and how similar it is, and how similar is, Montreal compared to Canton in that training environment, and, how is it different?
Well, it's not unique in the world of skating, as you know, for competitors to train together. And we've always believed that you need to surround yourself with the best in order to be the best. And, you know, heading into the rink in Montreal, we were fortunate enough to be welcomed with open arms. I mean, there's such a wonderful, supportive training dynamic there amongst all of the teams. And, you know, that's a testament to Marie and Patch and Romain. I think, you know, we're just excited to be in the mix. And we absolutely love the atmosphere. I mean, it's so motivating.
Yeah, we thought that we would come back and kind of be the veterans and offer some advice and, you know, our experience, the training with the top teams and training, you know, as a world champion with an Olympic champion. And we thought that we'd be the one to offer the insight, but, you know, Gabby and Guillaume have really blown us away. And they're wise beyond their years, and they're true champions as skaters as they are people. And to be honest, it's a joy to train with them every day. You know, we can tell you that they have just as much fun as you think they do, and they're beautiful. And that's just not, I'm sure that they weren't super happy to hear that we're coming back, or I don't even know if they even cared or not. But, you know, there are also some Canadian teams that it's very likely that we will be kind of making it a lot more difficult for them to get an Olympic spot. And everybody just seemed to be so welcome. And as Tessa said, they've really created that in the school, and it's really a family atmosphere. And we are learning so much, which is very, very interesting from, you know, these young athletes.
Well, how much, I guess, advanced news, did the other teams know that you were coming back? I mean, had that been talked about in Canada? Because obviously it happened the same day that Four Continents was going on when you announced.
Yes, yeah, no, we had certainly talked to Caitlin and Andrew before we made that announcement. And, you know, the timing was tricky because we didn't want to interrupt anyone's season. And we didn't, you know, want the focus to be on us while they were living out their last season. So we were here in Montreal doing a few training camps. I'm sure people put two and two together at some point when we were practicing the Midnight Blues. But
yeah, the word started to get out a little bit. There's one video clip of one of the younger teams getting interviewed, and they can see us doing the Midnight Blues in the background. So we thought time wasn't really on our side.
Yeah, it was just funny how timing goes. But one ending,
we asked Marie and Patch and Romain kind of to handle that because obviously they need to make sure with their school, and we could tell by the environment that we hadn't been in it. We'd been in it a little bit, creating some show programs and testing it out, but we could tell that there was a special atmosphere, and we didn't want to ruin that, and we wanted to come in the right way. So we relied on them kind of for that guidance, and I think they actually took the time and told all their students, and then we kind of opened it up to the rest of the world.
It's also a small world. Unless you were training under a rock, I think people are going to find out the second you.
Well, we were lucky because it was kind of, we were training with them, but it was before Worlds, and we've been there before where, you know, your years is just heating up, and then there's these people that they're doing things that are like 10 months away, and it's so annoying. So in Gadbois, there's two ice rinks, so we were hiding. We were hiding a little bit, but that wasn't to hide the fact that we might come back. It was just out of respect for the school and the feeling that they already had, and we didn't feel like we belonged in that mix.
Well, Canadian skating doesn't usually have the rivalries like we do in the U.S. Like there's always Ashley and Gracie, or like Tara and Michelle. So are we going to see a big ice dance rivalry this year? Yeah.
I don't know. I mean,
usually Canadians are very respectful of your veterans, and no one's ever competing with each other. But now you've got three really strong teams.
I think it's on now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny. It's a very interesting situation because, I mean, I've been training with Andrew Pogier since we were, I don't know, in the first 8, 9. Like we're in Kitchener-Waterloo, and with, you know, different partners and everything, and kind of growing up. We went to high school together. You have a great relationship with Caitlin, and, you know, like we've had that, but obviously things change a little bit when they hear that we're coming back. And they are also a team that we were really surprised with. We weren't sure kind of what tour would be like this year, and I think that's just understandable. It's just not the way that they kind of saw these couple of years. I'm sure we weren't in the picture in their mind, but I will say that they really surprised us, and you know, we're really proud with the way that they handled it and made us feel good on tour. And they were very, very understanding. And I think that's what's great about sport. And I know that they want to come out and kick our butts, and as they should. And, I will be cheering for them when we're not on the ice competing against them. But at the same time, it is a very interesting dynamic, and we always will hope the best for Caitlin and Andrew.
Do you watch the other Grand Prix events? Because they've kind of been in social media hiding this summer, and they've changed their programs around. And they've been in Russia training, so no one's seen them. So are you as excited to kind of see what they're putting out there?
I won't watch.
Yeah, I don't typically watch, just try and stay a little disconnected from it.
It's always kind of been our strategy. I don't know.
I hope they have a great skate in Russia. I can't wait for them.
Yeah, we'll be cheering them on, and I know that sounds cliche, but we really do mean that, and we expect them to have a great Grand Prix season and season in general. We know both when we come up against Caitlin and Andrew, Gabby and Guillaume, Maya and Alex, Evan and Maddie last week, we have our hands full, and we have to be better than we've ever been to be able to compete with these skaters. So, that's exciting for us.
All right. Well, ending with a couple of fun questions. I want to know.
All right.
All right. Well,
finish off my drink.
It seems like everyone in Scott's family has skated, has been on the ice, has maybe sharpened skates and anything. So, Tessa Virtue, can you name all of the Moir family members, cousins, aunts that have skated or currently work in skating?
I don't know if I can.
This generation, because weren't some of them on Nexus, and there's a whole...
Yes, you know what, that might be an impossible task. I could get pretty close, I think.
Nexus 08, world champs.
Okay.
I'll have my girls, Kara and Sherry.
I grew up admiring so many of them, especially Scott's cousins, and just idolizing them. And of course being coached by his aunt and his mom sometimes. So those Ilderton carnivals remain some of my favorite skating memories of all time, which highlighted many of the Moirs.
So did both of your brothers skate then? Because your brother ice danced.
Both. Well, my brother Dan ice danced, and that's really what got me into the sport. Was that I saw him and Sherry, and they traveled. They got to go to those junior Grand Prix that were always in really such unique places, and I thought, hey, maybe I could do that. And Charlie skated as well. Actually, Charlie was the only one that could jump out of us three boys. Dan, that was ugly, and I was even worse when we tried to leave the ice. But Charlie actually did a double axel and a triple sow, and but then he also was a better hockey player than us, so he had different experiences. But yeah, we all skated in my family, which was kind of fun. It was very interesting for three boys. I don't think that's happened too many times. In Ilderton, Ontario, three boys all figure skated.
Well, we know that Tessa loves a good Audrey Hepburn movie. So, Scott, what is your favorite Audrey Hepburn film?
Ooh, I'm not going to say Funny Face, because that's too cliche.
Roman Holiday, maybe? Or Sabrina?
Which one am I thinking of? There's one that I'm thinking of. Yeah. I don't think I've watched too many.
All right.
We've always had to watch, the Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers. That always comes up. But Audrey, other than Funny Face, which is a movie I watched a lot, I probably should have just went with Funny Face. Now I'm regretting.
Well, Kimmy Meisner said that she imagines that you're going to have a couple of freak-out moments between your big competition between now and NHK. You have some pretty stiff
Kimmy.
competition.
Oh, come on, Kimmy.
So how many moments of panic are you imagining between now and then?
Yeah, I'm going to call you when I have my next freak-out
moment. No kidding. Kimmy, I got my eyes on you. I could be, we are expecting that it's going to be a build to get to NHK. And I don't know, I think I had my freakouts between ACI and Skate Canada, so I'm feeling pretty relaxed at this present moment that I might be thinking about that so much that I might be in check enough to avoid a freakout. That's the hope.
We have a wonderful team in place that we can rely on, and we have a magnificent mental prep coach, so we're putting in a lot of good work on that end.
And now since we know Kimmy thinks we're going to freak out, we want to prove it wrong.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to get her to skate again. I mean, she was doing a triple Lutz on Instagram, so I'm trying to push her. She can still do her triple. So
she's amazing.
We toured with her last year, and she is an honorary Canadian.
Yeah, she's
when
the
she
best.
comes up, she did, was it Holiday Festival?
I think it was, yeah.
Oh, we have so much fun with Kimmy. She's a sweetheart.
Yeah. Well, our final question. I know that you didn't want anything about your relationship on the reality show. So how good would it be for your relationship if you could propose to Tessa right at the end of Worlds? I mean, what would happen with, how happy would your agent be here?
I don't think you really understand our relationship. It would be,
I mean,
For your
just
careers. I mean, think of the TV
Oh, my
Kardashian
career.
special you could
My
have.
career.
does anyone want that proposal though?
I think your reality show would have loved
Yeah,
it.
is
You
she
know?
saying-
No.
Is she saying, does anybody want that proposal?
No.
You
We
would have
love
gotten a
that.
season 2 out of it. Come on. Yeah.
Well, it would be nice. No, I'm just kidding. Could you
Yeah.
imagine if we set this up and this is it?
Yeah, that would be a good moment. Well, I look forward to watching you the rest of this season, guys. Thanks so much for coming on the skating lesson.
Thank you.
Thank you
so
for having
lovely
us.
to chat with you.
Yeah.